أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما نافعا اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the reflections on the Risale-i Nur by Bediuzzaman Said Nursi podcast series. This is Mustafa Tuna. You can listen to the episodes of this series wherever you listen to your podcasts or at the website www.reflections-rn.org. In this episode, inshallah, we will continue reading the 10th word. The 10th word is about the verity, reality of life after death, bodily resurrection, the hereafter, reward and punishment in the hereafter. This is a lengthy treatise. It has 3 main sections. The first section, as we read, was a representational story in which 2 friends find themselves in a paradisical land. One of them understands from what he observes around that this is not the be-all and all. There is life after that place because everybody departs and they will also depart, and there is something beyond the apparent reality of that limited space. The other one does not come to this conclusion, being defeated by the vain desires of his lower compulsive soul because he wants to live freely and take whatever he wants, whether that belongs to him or not. In the end, the righteous friend convinces his other friend. Then we move on to the second section in which Ustad Nursi elaborates on some of the themes, metaphors, figures of the representational story and tells us what they correspond to in reality. And the third section is about reality itself. And Ustad Nursi gives us a total of 12 proofs, demonstrations as to the verity reality of life after death. And the representational story here sets the stage for us. It sets patterns of thought in our minds that we can now use in order to understand the truths that Ustad Nursi elaborates on in the third section of the 10th word. We read through the first 8 of these truths and we began reading the 9th. Inshallah, we will try finishing the 9th truth today. Just as a reminder, I'm going to read the first paragraph of the 9th truth first and then move on to the section that we are inshallah going to be completing today. The 9th truth. This is the gate of giving life and giving death. It is a reflection of the names of the living, the sustainer, the giver of life, and the giver of death. As those who have been listening to the episodes of the 10th word from the beginning, or some of them will remember, each of these truths start by Ustad Nursi telling us that it is the gate of something. The gate of something we observe in the apparent reality, the visible reality that we live in. And this is evidence for something higher, something beyond it. That is why it is important. It is a sign of something. It signifies something. In this truth, we are looking at the phenomena of life and death, or giving life and giving death. We see that things that do not have life attain life, and things that have life lose life. So somebody must be giving it to them, and somebody must be taking it from them. It is the reflection of the names of the living, the sustainer, the giver of life, and the giver of death. After this phenomena that we observe in the visible reality, Ustad Nursi tells us that these are the reflections, manifestations of one or some of God's names, and he lists those names for us. And from there, we move on to think about a Lord, a God, who has these attributes, these names that we know about through their manifestations in the phenomena that we just observed in the visible realm. What do we expect from him after we depart from this land? Because we see it is an undeniable reality that everybody who comes to this world leaves it. We will leave too. What is going to happen after we leave? What can we expect from the Lord that we get to know by observing reality around us, importantly under the guidance of the Qur'an? So here we are looking at the names, divine names of the living, Al-Hayy, the sustainer, Al-Qayyum, the giver of life, Al-Muhyi, and the giver of death, Al-Mumit. The first paragraph of this truth outlines almost everything that is to come, and therefore I am going to read that too, inshallah, only in English before we move on to the section where we had left in the last episode. Is it at all possible that a merciful, all-powerful one and an all-wise, all-knower, these are of course referring to God, and Ustad Nursi always uses these names in the most appropriate way, in the most meaningful way. He does not randomly select names and put in the text for, let's say, reasons of rhyming, poetic reasons, etc., but he selects them in accordance with their meanings, and therefore we should highlight this. Is it at all possible that a merciful, all-powerful one and an all-wise, all-knower, who gives life to the entire earth when it is dead and dry, who demonstrates his power within that resurrection by resurrecting and dispersing more than 300,000 species of creation, each one of them as amazing as the resurrection of humans. Here the reference is to spring, and Ustad Nursi is talking about 300,000 species based on the information that humanity had at the time that he lived. Today we know that there are more species than that, and that's okay. We can just substitute whatever number is supposed to be there. What matters is that this is about a lot. There is a lot of species. There's a lot to be done in each spring. Who demonstrates the all-encompassing reach of his knowledge in that resurrection and dispersal through utmost distinction and differentiation within utmost mixing up and intermingling. Who directs the sights of all of his slaves to eternal felicity by promising the resurrection of humans in all of his heavenly decrees. Who demonstrates the tremendousness of his lordship by causing all existent beings revolve head to head, shoulder to shoulder, and hand in hand within the circle of his command and will, and by making them helpers to each other and subjugating them to one another. Who shows how much importance he gives to man by creating him as the most comprehensive, most delicate, most subtle, most pampered, and most supplicant fruit of the tree of cosmos, and by accepting him as his addressee and subjugating everything to him. This is the Lord. This is a description of God, right? A God like this, is it at all possible that he will not bring about the rising, will not and cannot create the resurrection, will not or cannot give life to mankind, will not be able to establish the supreme tribunal, and will not be able to create the paradise and hell? Is that possible? And this is a rhetorical question. The answer is, God forbid, never. And then we go on to detail all of these various themes in this paragraph. We left somewhere close to the end of the ninth truth, and inshallah we will continue reading from there. Hem bu bahar haşrine benzeyen, dünyanın her devrinde her asrında, hatta gece gündüzün tebdilinde, hatta cevvi havada, bulutların icat ve ifnasında, haşr-ı numune ve misal ve emare olacak ne kadar nakışlar yaptığını gözünle görüyorsun. Moreover, you see with your eyes. Again, the 10th word, and most of Ustad Nursi's work, is not about theoretical contemplation only. It's about reflection upon the creation, following God's command to do so. We look around, we observe things in the cosmos, and we do this with the full understanding that they are signs of creation. They are God's signs. They are signs that take us to an understanding, to a knowledge of our Lord. And therefore it is important that we see things with our eyes. We look and we see. We try not to be one of those who look and cannot see, even though they see physically, cannot see the meaning in it. What matters is that we see the meaning in things. Not only the colors, not only the shapes, not only the forms, but also the meanings that they indicate. We look at what Ustad Nursi calls elsewhere manay harfi, the indicative meanings of things. And this is a skill that we need to cultivate, we need to try. An important aspect of it is that we try to reconnect with our sense of wonder and amazement. The way that small children have that sense of wonder whenever they see something new and beautiful and interesting, they are so excited about it. We need to reconnect to that sense. We need to shed this sense of familiarity that makes us think that everything is normal. Nothing is normal. If we mean by normal, simple, easy, not worthy of attention, insignificant, nothing is normal. Everything is a miracle. We need to reconnect with the sense of wonder which should take us to our amazement and awe before the one who creates them. So, you see with your eyes how many embroideries that can be the examples, similitudes, and indications of resurrection he is making in bringing clouds into existence and annihilating them in the atmosphere, or in the alternation of night and day in each of the earth's epochs and centuries that are like the resurrection of the spring. So again, we look at the sky on a clear day, then toward late afternoon we notice that clouds are starting to gather, and it is almost like an embroidery. It's a lace work. It's beautiful. And then they keep gathering and gathering. Perhaps it rains, and then it disperses, it disappears, clear again. So where did they come from? Where did they go to? Somebody brought them into existence. Somebody took them out of existence. This somebody is able to bring things into existence and take them out of existence. We see that. We see that with our own eyes when we look at the sky. And of course, we gave many other examples of this phenomenon in the earlier sections of the 9th truth. But what really matters is that we need to be able to see this with that sense of amazement. We had a thought experiment in the previous episode about this. We imagined that we lived on a different planet where there were no trees, no life. People just ate the earth and survived by getting their nutrition from earth. And then we dropped this person from that planet on earth at the end of winter when things were dry and there was no sign of life or no apparent sign of life. And then the spring came. In a few days, flowers started to bloom, leaves started to shoot from the tree branches, plants started to come out of the ground. Imagine this person who was just waiting there, thinking that this land is like his land back in planet X, but here on this place on Earth, all of a sudden everything changed and life sprang forth. Imagine the amazement of that person and try to get there. Try to get there. That is the true way. That is the correct way to look at things. Things do not just happen. Somebody makes them. He has a purpose in making them. Then we need to think about the purpose. And the Qur'an tells us that the purpose, one of the purposes, is that they are signs. We need to learn, we need to teach ourselves to look at phenomena in the creation as signs, as things that signify something. We look at the sky, we see the clouds gathering and dispersing, and we understand from that that the one who does this is able to bring things into existence and take them out of existence. And similarly, the alternation of the night and the day. At night, everything is dark, nothing is visible, as though they are not in existence for us, in our sight. If they are in existence, their sight is not in existence. And all of a sudden, the day breaks and things start to take shape and come into existence. Our sight of them comes into existence. Hatta eğer hayalen 1000 sene evvel kendini farz etsen, sonra zamanın iki cenahı olan mazi ile müstakbeli birbirine karşılaştırsan, asırlar, günler adedince misali haşir ve kıyametin numunelerini göreceksin. This is so much so that if, in your imagination, you assume yourself to be there 1,000 years before this, and compare the past and the future, which are the two wings of time, you will see as many examples of the similitudes of resurrection and the day of rising to the number of centuries and days. Each century, each epoch, each unit of time in the longer durée of time, each unit of time in there that can be considered to have some kind of unity in itself. Be it a century, be it an epoch, be it a period, be it an era, right? All of those, something comes into existence. That is why we are considering it as something that has a kind of unity to itself. Something comes into existence. It has things that were not there before. It has thoughts, materials, communities, ways of interaction happening. And then the epoch changes. The century, the era changes, and those things that define that previous epoch are not there anymore, but there are new ones. And then the day and the night we just talked about. These are all signs of, examples of, similitudes of resurrection and the day of rising. And the thought process that we follow here is that we asked, can the Lord that we observed in the creation, can He do this? Can He give life to us after we die? Because that's, after all, what the mushrikun, those who ascribe partners to God, the deniers, the disbelievers at the time of the Prophet ﷺ asked. They said, after this, after we die and our bones crumble apart and become like dust and mix into earth, after that, is this God that you are talking about going to give us life? And this is all a response to it. It's coming shortly. God's response to that was, look, God is doing this all the time. Look around, for instance, in the spring, how while everything was dead, He gave life to them. Look how everything was dark at night and disappeared from sight. He gave life back to them. He gave existence back to them with the daybreak. He is doing it. You're asking, can He do it? And He is showing that He is doing it with an example. Think about let's say a cook. And you ask, can this cook do scrambled eggs? Because you are preparing for a feast, and in the feast, let's say you are going to host 50 guests, and the cook comes to you and says, I can cook scrambled eggs for your guests. And you say, okay, but I want to make sure, I don't want any accident to happen. I want to make sure that you can make scrambled eggs. Can you really make scrambled eggs? The cook pulls out a pan, some eggs, cracks the eggs, scrambles them, cooks it, and puts in front of you and says, yes, I can. He made it in front of you. What else do you need? Perhaps you want to ask, about scale. Can you make it for 50 people? Well, what we see is that God is making it again and again, every day and every night. Every alternation of day and night, He is making it again and again. Every year, in every spring, He is making it again and again, and He is showing that He makes it in thousands and thousands, perhaps millions of species, billions, trillions of individual animals that were dead and that came back from their eggs. In billions of trees that were dead, water had left their body, that had stopped their metabolism, and then with spring the temperature rises and life comes back to it. He is showing us that he is doing it. So if we see it with our own eyes, what doubt can we continue to have? We cannot. This all makes sense. What we see around entails what He says He will do. Sonra bu kadar numune ve misalleri müşahede ettiğin halde haşr-i cismaniyi akıldan uzak görüp istibad etmekle inkar etsen ne kadar divanelik olduğunu sen de anlarsın. And after you observe so many examples and similitudes, if you still deny bodily resurrection, considering it unreasonable and therefore deeming it unlikely, you too will understand what a lunacy that is. Lunacy. That is what it is. How can you deny something that's happening in front of your eyes? Bak, Ferman-ı Azam bahsettiğimiz hakikate dair ne diyor? Bismillah. فانظر إلى آثار رحمة الله كيف يحيي الأرض بعد موتها إن ذلك لمحيي الموتى وهو على كل شيء قدير. فانظر, look. And here, just as a side note, we always say that the Risale-i Nur is a commentary on the Qur'an. And sometimes one may not see that explicitly, because Ustad Nursi doesn't go verse by verse and then word by word doing the grammatical analysis of the sentence and then the morphological analysis of the word and then coming to the meanings from that. And so the usual established way of formal Quranic commentary, he does that in earlier works of his, and he does that in a masterful way. But here, what he is doing is he is digesting the meaning. He has digested the meaning that is in the Quran and the prophetic traditions and the example of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is giving us what he elsewhere calls milk. A good scholar is not like a bird that regurgitates the information that it had ingested. A good scholar ingests the knowledge, digests it, and gives you pure milk that's full of nutrition, has no harm, and the unnecessary parts, the parts that are necessary in conveying the meaning but not necessary in establishing that meaning in your mind and spirit and heart, right? He purifies that knowledge. And this is necessary for the people of our times who do not have the time or patience to go through the hardest work of sitting in front of a scholar, let's say for 15 years, in order to acquire some of this information. We are very blessed that God gave us a scholar like Bediuzzaman Said Nursi, at this time, whose work conveys us the reality, the gist, the kernel, the essence of the information that we need in order to have a better understanding of our Lord, in order to excel in our knowledge of our Lord. Those who have the time and opportunity should sit down in front of a scholar and study. And those who do not have that time and opportunity should look for times and opportunities to do it. But for those who do not have that time and opportunity, this is a blessing of God for our time, that the outcome of that study, which is knowledge of God, is packed in these treatises in such a beautiful way. And one would also not make the mistake that, okay, this is just all of that, summarized. This is not the real thing. No, this is the real thing. This is the essence of that. And there is addition on top of that too. So Ustad Nursi does not just reiterate what was out there in summary form, but he gives us more. He gives us, if nothing else, the skills to read the signs in the creation in order then to reach that information, that knowledge of God on ourselves too. And there's a lot more to it as we read that will become clear. But again, as a side note, we need to be grateful that we have the opportunity to access such purified, essential knowledge in such easy form, which is a blessing of God to the humans of our times. We can probably say, due to our poverty, due to our lack of himma, lack of effort compared to those who preceded us. But out of His mercy, God is continuing to give us that opportunity. Elhamdülillah. So, bak ferman-ı azam bahsettiğimiz hakikate dair ne diyor? Look what the tremendous decree says on this reality that we are talking about. All of this 10th word is a commentary in this verse that is to come. It is from Surah Al-Rum, the 30th chapter of the Qur'an, and the 50th verse is a part of the verse. And in addition to that, some who have spent some time on this say that this actually is the digestion of about 300 or so verses from the Quran. But this is the one that leads all of those verses. فَانْظُرْ إِلَىٰ آثَارِ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Look then at the imprints of God's mercy. Look all around and you will see God's mercy imprinted on everything as signs. كيف يحيي الأرض بعد موتها. How He restores the earth to life after death. The earth dies. Again, this is in winter. And then in spring, He restores the earth to life after death. إِنَّ ذَلِكَ لَمُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. The same God is the one who will return people to life after death. Were you asking, how is He going to do that? This is how He is going to do it, the way He is doing it. He does it. You see it. He'll do it in the same way. وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. He has power over all things. Elhasıl. Haşre mani hiçbir şey yoktur. So we are coming to a conclusion. This is the conclusion of the 9th truth, but in a sense it's a conclusion of everything that came before the 9th truth, the entire 10th word that preceded this conclusion. In conclusion, haşre mani hiçbir şey yoktur. There is nothing that precludes the resurrection, that makes us think that no, resurrection is not possible. There is nothing that renders the resurrection impossible. It is possible. Nothing that precludes the resurrection. Muktezi ise her şeydir. And everything entails it. Everything tells us that this is what makes sense. Everything tells us that my existence and the meanings that come from my existence require its existence. The existence of resurrection. Evet, mahşere acayip olan şu koca arzı, adi bir hayvan gibi imate ve ihya eden ve beşer ve hayvana hoş bir beşik, güzel bir gemi yapan ve güneşi onlara şu misafirhanede ışık verici ve ısındırıcı bir lamba eden, seyyaratı meleklerine tayyare yapan bir zatın, bu derece muhteşem ve sermedi rububiyeti ve bu derece muazzam ve muhit hakimiyeti, elbette yalnız böyle geçici, devamsız, bir karar, ehemmiyetsiz, mütegayyir, bekasız, nakız, tekemmülsüz umuru dünya üzerinde kurulmaz ve durmaz. So everything entails it. Everything entails resurrection. Yes, the so utterly magnificent and perpetual lordship, and the so utterly tremendous and encompassing sovereignty of an entity. Who is that entity? Of course, God. Utterly magnificent and perpetual lordship. Caring. When we say lordship here, we will understand both ownership and care. Sometimes they translate it as the nurturing master. God is our Lord. He is our Rabb. And his attribute of being the Lord is named Rububiyyah. And we usually translate it as lordship. But we need to understand, when we say this, we need to understand the entire package. Nurturing master. He nurtures us and he's our master. He is our caretaker and he is our owner. And we need to listen to him. He is also our discipliner. The so utterly magnificent and perpetual lordship and the so utterly tremendous and encompassing sovereignty. He has power over all things. We just said in the verse, and we see it when we look around. So utterly tremendous and encompassing sovereignty of an entity. So what kind of an entity that is? Who gives death and life to this massive earth, which is a place of resurrection for such amazing things. Remember, we need to keep that sense of amazement. Like an ordinary animal. He gives life and death to the entire planet Earth as if it is like an ordinary animal. As if, he is giving life and death to, let's say, a sheep or an ant or a bacteria. The entire earth with all of its massiveness, if you think of it like from a distance, look at it from a distance and see all these things growing on it and then disappearing, isn't growth a sign of life? And then isn't that transformation a sign of life? It is as if the entire earth is a living organism and God gives life and death to this entire organism as a simple ordinary animal, as if it is a simple ordinary animal, who makes it a pleasant cradle and a beautiful ship for humans and animals. A pleasant cradle. When the earth was first created, it was a huge mass of gas and particles and all sorts of other things. And then it started to cool down and became denser and denser. But it became something special. There are many, many, many other planets around the cosmos, around the universe that we observe, and we have not found one that is so suitable for life as the Earth. It became something special. The soil, for instance, is hard enough for us to walk on it and build on it, but it's also soft enough for us to dig it and put seeds in it and cover it again. So it has this capacity to be manipulated. It has this capacity to be manipulated, and through that manipulation, we are able to cultivate the earth. So this did not have to be like that. There are some planets that are, hard rock. There are some planets that are so soft, like gas-like. There are some planets where the surface is liquid-like. The earth has soil, and it has rocks that are firm and that hold our giant buildings on it. And then it also has water. And this is what the plants needed. It was like a cradle for plants at the beginning. And God created plants on the earth the way you prepare a cradle for a baby and then put the baby in the cradle. And then with the plants, as the plants developed and grew, now it became suitable for life, a higher level of life. Animals. It became like a cradle for animals, and God created animals on earth. Everything that they needed was here, prepared for them. And now it was ready for a higher level of life, humans. And God prepared the earth like a cradle that you prepare for a baby as you expect a baby. Everything that the baby needs, you make sure that he or she is going to be safe and sound. Everything was prepared here, and then God created man and sent him down to earth like a cradle. It looked like punishment, and there was an aspect of punishment in it, but the wisdom, the larger, broader wisdom was that he was sent down to here to live on it, to be God's vicegerent, and also he was sent down with a duty. What is the duty? To know the Lord, to know God. From the message that God sends to us, and also from the other kind of message, his signs in the creation. So, who makes it a pleasant cradle and a beautiful ship, like a ship that is sailing in space. If we were to think about how many different kinds of motion that the celestial bodies are involved in, and the earth is involved in, and being one of those celestial bodies, and we think about the speed at which it is moving around itself, around the sun, in the galaxy, and the galaxy is moving. If we think about all the various motions and speeds involved in this whole thing, it becomes amazing that we are feeling the way we are feeling on this earth, as if we are stable. There's nothing scary. There's nothing as if it is prepared for us. We are sailing through time and space on this earth, but it is made a safe ship for us. Everything we need in order to sail safely is prepared on it. Who makes the sun an illuminating and heating lamp for them in this guest house. Can we imagine life without sun? We need the light that it gives to us. We need the heat that it gives to us. God makes it give light and heat to us. He made it like a lamp, and he put it at such a distance that it is neither too far nor too close. If it were too far, it would be too cold here and not suitable for our lives. If it were too near, it would be too hot here and we would burn. Subhanallah. Glory be to him. He made this. He made this for us. Who makes celestial objects planes to fly on for the angels? This is something that will come later in the Risale-i Nur. Ustad Nursi tells us that the wisdom that we observe in God's creation of not creating anything for vain, and of course this is the wisdom that we get from the Qur'an too. They always corroborate one another. The wisdom that all these living objects on this earth have a purpose, and the earth itself, the lifeless objects on earth also have a purpose, and the lifeless objects serve the living objects. That wisdom tells us that the one who does it in this way here will do it like that elsewhere too. And there is life everywhere. There is life everywhere. Anywhere there are objects, inanimate objects, there is life that they serve too. And angels are the residents of the heavens. And Said Nursi says that God made the planets, planes for them. Angels, and there may be other heavenly bodies that we don't know about. So, we are talking about God, and we are reading these to describe the entity, the God that we are referring to, who gives death and life like giving it to an ordinary animal to this massive earth, which is a place of resurrection for such amazing things, who makes it a pleasant cradle and a beautiful ship for humans and animals, who makes the sun an illuminating and heating lamp for them in this guest house, who makes celestial objects planes to fly on for the angels, cannot be built on. His lordship and his sovereignty, the lordship and sovereignty that we are seeing in his creation, that cannot be built on and would not rest upon such temporary, impermanent, unstable, insignificant, changeable, unlasting, deficient, and incomplete affairs of the world. The lordship and sovereignty that we observe here and attribute to him is so tremendous that this world cannot be a match for its tremendousness and absoluteness. Demek ona şayeste daimi, berkarar, zevalsiz, muhteşem bir diyara ahar var. In that case, there is another abode that is permanent, stable, unending, and magnificent, as is worthy of him. Başka, baki bir memleketi vardır. He has another kingdom that is everlasting. Bizi onun için çalıştırır. He makes us work for that. Oraya davet eder ve oraya nakledeceğine, zahirden hakikate geçen ve kurbu huzuruna müşerref olan, bütün ervah-ı neyyire ashabı, bütün kulübü münevvere aktabı, bütün ukul-u nuraniye erbabı şehadet ediyorlar ve bir mükafat ve mücazat ihzar ettiğini müttefikan haber veriyorlar ve mükerreren pek kuvvetli vaat ve pek şiddetli tehdit eder, naklederler. He employs us for that. He invites us to there, and all bearers of luminous spirits, all axes or poles of illuminated hearts, and all possessors of enlightened intellects who have transcended from appearance to reality, who have been honored with the closeness of his, God's presence, are bearing witness in agreement that he has prepared a reward and punishment, and they are conveying that he is much forcefully promising that reward and much sternly threatening with that punishment again and again, repeatedly. Hulful vaad ise hem zillet hem tezellüldür. Hiçbir cihetle celali kutsiyetine yanaşamaz. As for breaking a promise, it is both abjectness and humiliation. It cannot even come close to the sanctity of his majesty in any way. Hulful vaid ise ya aftan ya acizden gelir. As for failing to fulfill a threat, that is either from forgiveness or from impotence. Either the person who promised or threatened with punishment changed his mind, decided to forgive the criminal, or he is not able to, is not capable of inflicting the punishment that he said he is going to. Halbuki küfür cinayeti mutlakadır, affa kabil değil. However, disbelief, kufr, is a crime of an absolute nature. It cannot be forgiven. Here there's a side note, and we will come to it at the end. We talked about this before, and that will be somewhat of a repetition. Disbelief is a crime of an absolute nature. But before that, we should highlight that disbelief is not a perfect translation for kufr. Literally, kufr means to cover up. It is covering up something that you know, and deep in our hearts, we all know that God exists. We were in his presence before we came to this world. Because of the filth and rust and all sorts of other ailments, sicknesses that cover our hearts, human beings fall into kufr, into disbelief. And it is a crime of an absolute nature. It cannot be forgiven. It cannot be forgiven. Kadir-i mutlak ise acizden münezzeh ve mukaddestir. And the absolutely all-powerful one is beyond and sanctified above impotence. We cannot ascribe powerlessness, impotence to him. He is above, beyond that. He is sanctified above that. Şahitler, muhbirler ise mesleklerinde, meşreplerinde, mezheplerinde muhtelif oldukları halde kemali ittifak ile şu meselenin esasında müttehiddirler. Now, we talked about the promise and threat, and we established that we cannot expect God not to fulfill his promise or not to fulfill his threat. Doesn't work. Okay, then what about the reports that we are receiving? What about those who say that God promises this and God threatens with this? As for the witnesses and reporters, although they have different dispositions, different characters, and different paths to follow, they are unified. They are unified on this matter with perfect agreement. And people from all different sorts of rounds of life, sometimes who do not see one another, if they are all agreeing on one thing, then they cannot lie about that. They cannot lie about that. That's a logical conclusion. Kesretçe tevatür derecesindedirler. They reach the degree of broad authentication from the point of view of quantity. Tevatür, broad authentication. We talked about this before. If we have a report that is reported from multiple sources that each originate from individuals that are separate from one another and that cannot have consulted with one another on this particular matter, right? Then we have broad authentication, and that information, this entails that information should be accepted as accurate. Keyfiyetçe icma kuvvetindedirler. So that was quantity. What about quality? They have the power of consensus from the point of view of quality. That is, the content of what they are suggesting, all agree. What they are reporting, all agree. Mevkice her biri nev-i beşerin bir yıldızı, bir taifenin gözü, bir milletin azizidirler. So what about them as persons? Are they valuable people? They are each a star of the humankind, the eye of a people, and the venerable notables of a nation in their ranks. The eye of a people, meaning that the eye is so important to us, right? They're so important among their people, and they are the venerable notables of a nation with regard to their ranks. Ehemmiyetçe şu meselede hem ehli ihtisas hem ehli isbattırlar. With regard to their significance, they are both the authorities on and the bearers of affirmation in this matter. What does that mean? That is coming. Halbuki bir fende veya bir sanatta iki ehli ihtisas binler başkalardan müreccahtırlar. Ve ihbarda iki müsbit binler nafilere tercih edilir. So they are authorities of this matter. They know what they are talking about. They have specialized in this. They have studied this. They have acquired knowledge about this. And they are affirming an information. They are authorities, and they are suggesting that something is something in their field. With regard to a matter that concerns the field that they have specialized in, they are affirming a matter. They are saying that something is something as opposed to something is not something. They are affirming, they are not negating. With regard to their significance, they are both the authorities on and the bearers of affirmation in this matter. In a science or craft, two authorities of the matter are preferable over thousands of others. Let's think about a traffic accident happened, and there's a crowd gathering around the people who were involved in the accident. There are two men who are both lying on the ground. Thousands of people gathering in there, and everybody says something. Somebody says, lift him up. Somebody says, no, don't lift him up. Keep him on the ground. Somebody says, open the chest. Somebody says, do this. Somebody says, do that. And then there comes one person. He says, I am a medical doctor. I know the situation. I know what needs to be done here. And then everybody moves apart. He is the authority. We'll leave the word to this person. However, if this is something even more important, if this is about the establishment of a disputed matter in the field, right? Then we look for at least two authorities to confirm. We look for the experiment, let's say, that one of the authorities does to be confirmed with another one, so that it is repeatable. It is repeatable because perhaps the first one, although he is an authority, is not honest. Or perhaps the first one, although he is an authority, he made a mistake out of absent-mindedness, right? But when two of them come together and confirm, their affirmation is preferable over thousands of others. Now, first of all, that they are specialists of the matter, together they are preferable over thousands of others. And then the next point is, in reporting a matter, two affirmers are preferred over thousands of negators. Again, why? Because they are affirming the matter. They are saying that this is what it is. They are proving the existence of something. And we talked about this before too. Proving the existence of something is much easier than proving the non-existence, absence of something. Because to prove the absence of something, you have to sift through, look at, be aware of the entire universe in which you are proving or disproving the existence or absence of this thing. But when you are proving existence, you only need to point to it. And therefore, in reporting a matter, two affirmers are preferred over thousands of negators. For example, mesela Ramazan hilalinin sübutunu ihbar eden iki adam binler münkirlerin inkarlarını hiçe atarlar. For example, two men who report the appearance of the Ramadan crescent totally nullify the denial of thousands of deniers. Elhasıl, dünyada bundan daha doğru bir haber, daha sağlam bir dava, daha zahir bir hakikat olamaz. In conclusion, there cannot be a more accurate report, a sounder claim, a more apparent truth than this in the world. Demek şüphesiz dünya bir mezraadır. In that case, without a doubt, this world is a cultivating field. Mahşer ise bir beyderdir, harmandır. As for the place of gathering, mahşer in the hereafter, it is a threshing floor, a harvest field. Whatever is cultivated here will be taken there, and then the grain will be separated from the chaff. Cennet, cehennem ise birer mahzendir. And the paradise and hell are each a storehouse. The grain will be stored in one, and the chaff will be stored in another one. So inshallah, we will read the side note too, and then finish. The side note was about the sentence, let's go back there, about this sentence. However, this belief is a crime of an absolute nature. It cannot be forgiven. The side note will explain why. Evet, küfür, mevcudatın kıymetini ıskat ve manasızlıkla ittiham ettiğinden, bütün kainata karşı bir tahkir ve mevcudat aynelerinde cilve-i esma-i inkar olduğundan, bütün esma-i ilahiyeye karşı bir tezyif ve mevcudatın vahdaniyetine olan şehadetlerini reddettiğinden, bütün mahlukata karşı bir tekzip olduğundan, istidad-ı insaniyi öyle ifsad eder ki, salah ve hayrı kabule liyakatı kalmaz. Hem bir zulmü azimdir ki, umum mahlukatın ve bütün esma-i ilahiyenin hukukuna bir tecavüzdür. İşte şu hukukun muhafazası ve nefsi kafir hayra kabiliyetsizliği, küfrün ademi affını iktiza eder. Euzubillah. İnne şirke le zulmun azim. Şu manayı ifade eder. Yes, because this belief, attributes worthlessness to existent beings and accuses them of being meaningless. This belief attributes worthlessness to existent beings. Why is this world created? Well, it is not created, it's just there. What does it serve? It doesn't serve anything. What is its meaning? There is no meaning. This belief attributes worthlessness to existent beings, or rather takes away the worth from existent beings. It accuses them of being meaningless because it is an insult to the entire cosmos and a denial of the reflections of the names, divine names, on the mirrors of existent beings. If you told me, you are worth nothing, you mean nothing to us, I would be insulted, right? That's what this belief does. It tells everything in the creation, you are worth nothing, you mean nothing, because it is an insult to the entire cosmos and a denial of the reflections of the names on the mirrors of existent beings. Now, everything is a manifestation of God's names. And therefore, when you say you are nothing, you have no meaning, that goes to God's names, to the divine names. Because it is an insult to the entire cosmos and a denial of the reflections of the names on the mirrors of existent beings. Because it belittles the divine names and rejects the testimony of existent beings to God's essential oneness. And because it amounts to a refutation of all created beings. It corrupts human aptitudes in such a way, because of all of this, it corrupts human aptitudes in such a way. What aptitudes is that? Well, knowing God, worshiping God, glorifying God, being the vicegerent of God on earth, showing mercy. It corrupts human aptitudes in such a way that there remains no capacity for rectification and receiving good. Moreover, it is such a tremendous oppression that it constitutes an infringement of the rights of the entire creation and all divine names. So, the preservation of those rights and the incapability of the disbelieving lower soul to do or receive good entails disbelief not to be forgiven. Inna shirka la zulmun azim. That's from the Qur'an, chapter 31, verse 13. And one meaning may be, ascribing partners to God is a terrible wrong, a tremendous oppression. This statement from the Qur'an expresses this meaning, that disbelief is not to be forgiven. May we stay from away it, and may it stay away from us. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.